Welcome to the Action Network studio in New York City. I'm Maria Marino, and this is Green Dot Daily. We're live every weekday at 3 Eastern on YouTube, as well as the Action app, where you can also find us on demand. Coming up on the show, the Stars have their backs against the wall in the West Finals. Is now the time to bet them? Plus, a couple MLB underdogs you might want to ride with. But we start with some NBA news. The Heat announced this morning that Gabe Vincent has been ruled out of Game 5 against Boston after spraining his left ankle in Game 4. Vincent has averaged 17.5 points during the Eastern Conference Finals, including a 29-point effort in Game 3, which led all scorers. With that, we say hello to Action Network senior writer Matt Moore. And Matt, even before this Vincent news, I was having trouble formulating a game script for tonight. What kind of effects do you think this injury will have?
So I think there's a couple of angles here to consider when you're going to this game to bet. One, I think the primary beneficiary from a betting standpoint is probably going to be Jimmy Butler. The reason I say that is Vincent was number 2 on this team in pick and rolls run this season. As far as primary initiation of the offense, he's a huge part of that, just as the basic point guard. He runs a lot of the offense when Butler's not on the floor. Now, on the other side of that is Jimmy's given so much in these games throughout these playoffs. Giving him more of a workload is probably going to result in fatigue. And if you ask, like, well, why wouldn't they just distribute that elsewhere? It's not really how this works in the playoffs. Like, when you have a hierarchy like this and you lose a player like this, the guys at the top absorb more of that usage, more of that workload, rather than distributing it to somebody less, because you can only have so many guys on the floor. Like, if we talk about Max Strus, can Max Strus run some of this? Maybe, but Max Strus really isn't an on-ball player. That's not the function of him. He'll probably get a higher shot volume based off of some of the spot-ups that Vincent's not getting. But as far as initiation, starting offenses, overall production, overall flow of the offense, they're going to miss some of that, and Butler's going to have to be the one to pick it up, along with probably Kyle Lowry a little bit more. There's also, there's a lot of this on the defensive side too. Vincent's been really good at screen navigation. He's really good at getting through and around screens. He understands the Heat's concepts very well. A lot of their stuff defensively does depend on Vincent's ability to pester. He's made himself a lot of money as an upcoming free agent due to those factors. So he's got a lot of impact on that side as well. If you're noticing a trend here, it's that we're probably going to see a higher production load from Butler. The question is going to be if the other guys can continue to hit shots with Vincent, who's been lights out from 3, with him not available. And it's probably going to make things a little bit easier on Boston defensively, given what Vincent's been able to give them there.
This is exactly the type of spot where Eric Spoelstra comes into play, because he's going to have a plan for this. But I do worry about Kyle Lowry, particularly in regard to foul trouble. And for what it's worth, I just did a quick glance at the Butler over-under for points. At last check was 28.5. Not much of a change from before the Vincent news. So do with that what you will in terms of props. But let's bring Sean Little into the fold now to talk about picks, because the two of you are going head-to-head on the total. So Sean likes the under, Matt likes the over. Both of you are going to get a chance to make your case, and then I will make my judgment. I will sit here in judgment. Sean, the floor is yours.
I never like to go against my guy, Matty Moore, but I do like the under 215.5 in this spot. I expect a much cleaner game overall from both sides. 26 total turnovers in Game 4, 16 from Miami. I kill Boston frequently for not showing up and playing entitled hoops, thinking they could just pull up to the gym and just out-talent people to W's. And they showed up in Game 4, and that's kind of what letting go of the rope has been a very popular phrase the last couple of days, and that's exactly what the Miami Heat did in the second half, and particularly in Game 4. Jimmy mentioned in the post-game presser, listen, we didn't get back in transition. We didn't close out and contest. I expect all those things to change, and they have to slow up the transition of the Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown has not been shooting it well from the floor. 9 of his 17 points did come in transition, though. When he got out on the break, they did have some success. So I expect that to be the focus of the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler. I'm also worried flat out about the Miami Heat's ability to score. Now I like the under 215.5 when I was still, the questions on game visit was still up in the air. With him out, I like it even more. We know they've been shooting lights out. Coming into Game 4, They were shooting 48% from three, the Miami Heat. They've been shooting the ball extremely well all playoffs. They went 8 of 32 in game 4. I don't expect them to shoot 25% again, but even if they shoot 35%, I think that's still not going to be enough for them to score enough points to compete with Boston and then push this over. Last point here. The Miami Heat had 27 points off 10 Celtic turnovers. That's 2.7 points a turnover. That's absolutely ridiculous. The league average is 17 points off around 14 turnovers. Add that to the Miami Heat getting to the line 28 times and only scoring 99 points total. They absolutely crushed them when they turned the ball over. They got to the line, still scored 99 points. I'm worried about Miami's ability to score. I think Miami slows it down to have a chance. I like under 215.5.
Wow, that was a rather compelling argument, but Matt, I know you have a rebuttal.
Sure do. Let's look at actually what happens in the playoffs the last 2 seasons with these teams, and we're facing a pretty low total here to begin with. The last 2 seasons, the over after a Heat loss or after a Celtics win, 26 and 22 at 54%. Like, they've tended to go over in these kind of spots because the Heat tend to bounce back offensively, and the Celtics, after they win, tend to let down defensively. That's why you want to bet Celtics. You want to bet unders after Celtics losses. That's where you want to get in on this, is the Celtics tend to actually buckle down. Now, they didn't do that after the first 2 games because they've absolutely fallen apart in the series and the Heat have shot the lights out. But that's where you want to bet them, not here, Sean, not here. If the Celtics win, the threes are falling en masse. They're 10-3 when they make more than 15 threes. A higher volume of threes is probably going to lead to an over here just based off of the sheer volume of threes and versus a low number, even with whatever pace that they play at. If the Heat are winning, guess what? The threes are falling en masse. They're 16-6 the last 2 postseasons when they make more than 10 threes, which is probably going to push this over. No Gabe Vincent, I talked about this earlier, means probably more Duncan Robinson as well. That's worse defense. That's more 3-point shooting. The game script for this is more of an offensive side, one way or the other. I hear Sean's point that it may result in like the Celtics go a big number and the Heat are held under again. But I still think it's possible that even if we see a blowout here, it could be Celtics minus, Celtics put up a 128 and the Heat only put up 100, 105, and it's still a blowout. They still have a poor offensive showing, and this cruises over the over. So to me, there's only one thing you can do here. You got to go with the over based off of how the script has gone and be ready. I will say, I'm with Sean. Once we get to game 6 and 7, we're hitting those unders real hard.
Whew. Okay, this is tough because, I mean, Sean, look, you and I, we're pals, we're homies. But here's something that I noticed. The only time in this series that we've gone under this number was in game 4. And even if the Celtics win, and even without Gabe Vincent, I do expect the Heat to be a lot more competitive. And so that competitive nature of what I think this game will be, I believe will cause the total to go over. So that's my judgment, and I will fully admit, if Sean, if this goes under, I will give you the credit, as I do. But before I let you guys go, I did want to get just overall thoughts on the series, because Matt, the last time you and I spoke, we all were talking about it. The Celtics just looked rather lifeless, but did their response in Game 4 restore any faith for you in the Celtics to be able to win this series?
No, it's not that I don't have faith in them. I just don't know what to expect here. I have no idea what's going to go on here. Like, the Celtics only respond when they're absolutely up against the wall. They responded. Will they keep responding? Miami had a letdown game, but they've managed to get out of these series quickly in all of these series. Shouldn't they just go? They're on the road. Oh, no! Except that the home team in the series between the Celtics and Heat the last 2 postseasons has been terrible. Like, whoever's been at home has been at a disadvantage somehow. I have no idea what to expect in this game. This is not a side play for me at all. I won't touch the side. I absolutely will not. I thought the Celtics were done. And there was a lot of good comments from Stuckey. You can also follow on the Action Network app about, look, typically when the quit narrative keys in, you get an overreaction in the market. And we saw that. I talked about the line movement and how extreme that was. It was an overreaction. That's a bad job by me for buying into that narrative. But I will say, like, I don't feel comfortable going either way here, because now the conversation has shifted the other way, where the Celtics are back to being considerable favorites, way more than you'd think for a team down 3-1. So I have no idea what to make of this. I have no idea what to make of the Celtics. I have no idea what to make of the Heat. Best of luck to you side bettors. I'm sticking with the total and staying away from whatever happens as far as a result in this game.
Sean, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, this is a one of a kind type spot. Me and Matt have been talking offline. The rest of the action guys, this is just something we've never seen before. Now, the big talk is with the Lakers getting swept, teams down 0-3 now move to 0-150. But this is a completely different type of situation. Our guy Brandon Anderson did an amazing job breaking down kind of that 150 number is a little fluffy. So listen to this. Only 3 times has a team staved off elimination in game 4, which the Boston Celtics did, and then return home for game 5. That's only happened 3 times out of the 150 down 0-3 matchups that we've seen in NBA history. So this is a different type of situation. Boston has a ton of the momentum, and Boston is a really good team when they play. I guess they're focused. I don't even know how to describe it. When they show up, they do show up. They were number 1 in net rating in the NBA this year. When they play good ball, you saw in game 4, they get rolling and they play really well and get W's. Can they rattle off another 3 in a row? We will find out, but that's the beauty of the NBA.
Indeed, and this is truly unprecedented given that the Heat are an 8 seed and they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. And Matt, when you talked about the fatigue factor with Jimmy and the fact that he likely is going to have a heavier workload tonight, if they don't win tonight, that's where the doubt starts to creep in, because in the long run of the series, that fatigue could end up affecting him and the Miami Heat more. Okay, Matt Moore, Sean Little, this has been just a blast. We will be talking to you soon on Green Dot Daily. Thanks for joining the show.
Thanks, Marie.
Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. To the NHL. What a year it's been for the Panthers. Back in November, their title odds were at plus 1,100. In March, plus 4,000, and got all the way up to plus 6,600 before coming down to plus 2,500 at playoff time, and now they sit at plus 105. As we welcome in our analyst, Michael Leboff. So Carolina is now 0-12 in their last 12 Eastern Conference Finals games, I should say. What's your reaction to what happened last night?
Yeah, it's a bizarre stat, considering, just how random hockey can be. And usually you catch a break at least here or there to avoid a sweep, especially if you're a good team like they've been. If you go to the conference finals, you're obviously pretty good. But I think this is just kind of showing you who the Panthers are and why they set up so well in these best of 7 series, because they're such an opportunistic bunch. They've gotten great goaltending, obviously, from Sergei Bobrovsky, who's the Conn Smythe favorite now, and that keeps them in games so they might not create all that many opportunities. They might get outchanced pretty consistently, but with Bobrovsky doing his thing behind them, they only need to score 2 or 3, make good on 3 of their 15 to 20 scoring chances a game, and they've proven to be able to do that. So this is a team that's proven to be pretty pesky and opportunistic and clinical in front of goal. And that just works when you're talking about best of 7s, when you don't need to keep that going for 82 games. If you only need to do it 4 or 5 times, it's a lot easier to pull off. So you tip your cap to the Panthers. It's been a wild ride for them.
Now we have to see who they will match up with in the Stanley Cup Finals. But that brings us to first tonight's game in the West. Dallas trailing 0-3 in the series. What's your pick?
Yeah, this isn't a fun one at all, but I would have to look at Dallas here. All you have to do to find the value side for this game is look at where this line closed for game 3, which was Dallas minus 150, minus 150. Now it's minus 115-ish around the market. And I know that bettors don't really want to back a team coming off a really ugly loss, especially one that puts them down 0-3 in a series. But when the market shifted this much, it's telling you that there's been an overreaction to the circumstances. Now they're without Jamie Benn. They'll be without Evgeny Dodonov, so two of their middle six forwards are out. But even those injuries and suspensions shouldn't move the line this much. Right? These still are two very good teams. It should be pretty much a coin flip, and will likely come down to who gets the goaltending. And even though Jake Ottinger has been outplayed, surprisingly, by Adin Hill so far, they should still, on paper, have the better goalie in this matchup. So it's a plug your nose, as our colleague Stuckey would like to say. But I think that Dallas is the only way to bet this game. I also have a player prop that I'm targeting here based on Dodonov and Ben going out. Max Domi should get more usage. He should get better playing opportunities, whether it's on the power play. And he's just generally been one of Dallas's more effective forwards throughout these playoffs. He's a volume shooter. He can rack up the shots on goals pretty quickly. So I like Domi. He's 5-1 to get on the board tonight. I think that he's definitely worth playing, whether it's to score first, score multiple goals. I think you'll be able to find some value on Max.
Well, you know what I like about you, Mike, is you're never afraid of the ugly picks. That doesn't scare you away. So we appreciate that. Thanks for joining us here.
Yeah, I mean, I am afraid of them.
But you do it. It doesn't.
I'll still do it anyways.
It doesn't scare you away entirely.
Yeah.
You're okay with it. All right.
Yeah, I'm okay with living in fear and loathing. Is kind of just what I'm all about.
That's you in a nutshell. Thanks again, my friend. Over to baseball. These are a couple of key matchups remaining on Thursday. Blake Snell and the Padres take on Jake Irvin and the Nationals in the rubber match of their series at 4:05 Eastern. And at 6:40, it's Lucas Giolito and the White Sox against Alex Faedo and the Tigers in Game 1 of their series. We bring in MLB expert Sean Zerillo now. Which side do you like in the Padres-Nats game?
Yeah, Blake Snell, a guy who's been very up and down right now in a down period. I like the Nationals in both halves of this matchup to about plus 135 for the first 5 innings, plus 145 for the full game, maybe a little bit higher after lineups should just come out, just a few cents higher, maybe 5 cents, 3 cents each on each line, but the price has ticked up in both halves. But Blake Snell, lowest strikeout rate for him since 2017, and really since he won the Cy Young, it's mostly been a downward performance trend for him. Injuries cropped up, but really below average seasons, more or less, other than the second half of last season. And I think the Nationals are a particularly difficult matchup for him, too. A guy who relies on strikeouts, while the Nationals strike out less often than any other team in baseball. Bit odd. They rank second against lefties in strikeout rate, 7th against righties, but in the aggregate, they do have the lowest strikeout rate, and they are better against lefties, not only in terms of avoiding the strikeout, but also offensively, the production they're providing. Top 7 team left-handed pitching this season. So I think the Nationals can provide some difficulty for Snell, rack up his pitch count, frustrate him, and maybe get him out of that game. Didn't consider betting the over, even though I'm against both pitchers, essentially in the long term. Just the weather didn't align with where I wanted to bet the total tonight. But the Nationals in both halves for me, even though the Padres at some point, we keep saying this, but at some point they're due to hit better with runners in scoring position.
All right, good to know. You also have a pick for White Sox Tigers. What are you thinking in that one?
Yeah, I like the Tigers in both halves of this matchup as well. I also like the unders too, but unfortunately they have moved out of range compared to my price targets. If you got an under 8 at plus money, I would consider it. Both teams are in their lesser split here, so I don't expect much scoring. Both bottom 5 offenses against right-handed pitching, and both pitchers pitching pretty well this season. Lucas Giolito, a guy I bet against a lot last season, showing the best walk rate of his career. Strikeout rate is still down compared to his career peak, so I don't necessarily think he'll get back to that peak unless those strikeouts start piling up again. But Alex Faedo, a guy, a former first-round pick who I think might finally be finding his stride at big league level, came back last season after Tommy John surgery. Command typically the last thing to come back after Tommy John, and he was moved pretty aggressively through the minors, just made a few starts in AAA before getting called up. So command looks much better this year. It was supposed to be his carrying tool. In scouting reports, seems like he's fulfilling it. Has a below average fastball, but if he's going to command the ball well, he actually has a decent future at the MLB level. So like the unders in this matchup, but I also like the Tigers. Made this game around a coin flip. So the Tigers to plus 112 in either half. certainly an underdog bet I like too.
Sean Zerillo, we appreciate the insight. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Remember, any picks we give out here on the show, like the ones you just heard from Sean, you can easily reference by following Green Dot Daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's going to do it for Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you again Friday to close out the week strong at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app.